All right, it is finally game weekend for the Big 12 Conference and for all of college football. Josh Neighbors here with Robbie Triano, here to preview the games. Robbie, I've got Chick-fil-A, which
What?
that's how you know it's football season.
It is football season.
Chick-fil-A is synonymous with college football. I've been asking everybody this before we get to the games, what is your favorite Bishop Sycamore meme? What has been your favorite?
Oh, Bishop Sycamore. I think what's kind of hurtful is when Cam Newton or any player gets cut and now they're on Bishop Sycamore.
Yeah.
But I love when they just post pictures of 30-year-olds in football jerseys, just like Bishop Sycamore. So that story is absolutely insane. And I'm not here for the slander that the Big 12 is going to expand and take Bishop Sycamore. I'm not taking those jokes. I'm not taking it.
Well, it's funny. I did tell the story the other day, but Tom Luganbill, who we work with, I was on Sunday with him when he was saying, I have this weird game I have to call between IMG and this school for like wayward boys. And It turns out to be this is the game that he was calling. And the clips of him and Anna Schroff ripping Bishop Sycamore on air are like, they're phenomenal. They're so good.
Yeah. They knew it before it was like we knew on the meme, but they were like, something's up here. And that's a sign of a good like reporter.
They were like, this is not normal for high school football. All right, so we've got 10 games this weekend, which it's great. You know, it's a lot, but it's great in the Big 12 Conference. We're gonna go through all of them and give our picks. We also have our Saturday 7. This will probably end up being a two-parter. This is probably being part 1 here, but we've got our 10 Big 12 games. Saturday 7 are the 7 games outside of the Big 12 that, in my opinion, had the biggest impact on college football. And we have graphics for all of the games, which is fun as well. So game number 1 that we've got to look at is Friday at 7 o'clock on ESPN+. It's South Dakota at Kansas. And Robbie, I've been asked about this game. The Jayhawks are 13.5-point favorites. I was actually on a radio show yesterday, and they were like, what are you expecting? Kansas has to win this game. And they don't have to win this. If you're like, I'm like our colleague Gabe Eichert, I did bet the over on 1 wins for Kansas. And I'm a Mizzou grad, but I want it to happen. Like, I want them to be better. I want things to go well for Lance Leipold. The problem is he missed all of spring ball, right? He didn't get any spring ball with the team because of when he came to be the head coach. Now, that being said, like, you want to beat South Dakota, but here's the thing. This season could be a disaster. I still think the Lance Leipold hire was like a home run, considering when they got him in the coach hiring calendar.
No, I agree with that too. And when it comes to Kansas, this is the team I know the least about, and I think for good reason. They've given no reason for us to exactly know who is going to be playing for them. For right now, we know that Miles Kendrick is going to be their starter. That's what I've going to assume with this Kansas team. But yeah, this is a game where if you're a Kansas fan, I think you want to come out with the win here because it may be your only one. I am too. Want them to get over that 1.5 over. That is one of my locks of the Big 12 season. But yeah, if you're Lance Leipold, you want to come out and see that your team is actually confident, to see if they actually believe in you, because we saw at the tail end of the Les Miles era that Kansas team did not believe in what exactly was going on there. We have sources that were just like looking at this team on the sideline. None of them were engaged. This is like the line here is 13.5. Do I think they're going to cover it? I hope so. I mean, South Dakota is a bad football team. They played Oklahoma last year. Not very good, but I'm excited for this Kansas team to show at least something, and I think they're going to have to be holding on to this win if they do win for quite some time.
Their non-conference schedule is ridiculously interesting. So obviously the Big 12, all of your fans, you know that there are 9 conference games, right? Because you play the 9 other teams. So their non-conference is home against South Dakota. They go to Coastal Carolina, which ended up being a much different opponent, I think, than when this was scheduled.
Yeah.
Right? Much different when you schedule.
Yeah, they put that in the schedule. You know how like teams now are scheduling games, like Oklahoma's scheduling against Alabama in 2030. Like, what's the point of this? Exactly. If this is a game they scheduled long ago, like, Coastal, that's an easy W. Or no,
they got beat at home, and Coastal's very good again this year. They go there. They play Baylor at home. They go to Duke, and I'm not saying they're going to beat Duke, but Duke is bad, and David Cutcliffe is a very good coach. It's getting towards the end really for him. So, depending on how frisky Kansas could be, I'm just saying maybe that's where we get our 2, Robbie. But look, they have potentially 3 chances to get wins in the first 4 games. The game against South Dakota, Baylor is one of the weakest teams in the Big 12 that they will play all year. And then also you've got Duke as well. I know it's on the road, but Wallace Wade Stadium in Durham is about as sleepy as KU Stadium is in Lawrence.
Yeah, so I'm looking at their depth chart right now, and it looks like they have a healthy mix of seniors and freshmen on this team. Do I know most of them? No, but this is a team I feel like on their defense, I think on their defense, they are only starting 2 freshmen or redshirt freshmen on that team. So that's good. The rest of them are either seniors and juniors. So I think this is a good sign for, Lance Leipold. At least he has somewhat of an experienced unit, and he's not just going to toss out freshmen out here. So this is a good gauge game for Kansas. Yeah. Let's pray.
I think they win by like 10. I mean, I can't imagine laying 2 touchdowns with Kansas. Like, I don't know. I know South Dakota is not great FCS team, but considering the circumstances, like I guess I'll take South Dakota plus 13.5, but this is not a game where I'm tweeting on Saturday morning. These are my 5 confident Big 12 picks.
Yeah, which is weird too, is the Friday night game. So strange that this is happening on ESPN Plus. I'm going to take Kansas with the points here. I trust Lance Leipold. I think this has to be a confident game for them, and I'm picking the Jayhawks and the team I know the least about in the Big 12.
All right, and I think that goes for everybody too. I'm sure Kansas fans probably don't know much about their team.
Right.
The second game that we've got 11 o'clock Central Time on ABC. It's Tulane at number 2 Oklahoma. This game, I got it luckily at 26.5. Is when I got it. I did a little bit of research on Sunday. There's a lot of value on Sunday, and a lot of places, our friends at betonline.ag still had it as a line as if this game was going to be played at Ullman Stadium. And I said, look, you can grab this now. They're not going to avoid that bet if you make it. And this game, I think the big story here is for Tulane, there's just so much going on. It's a good program. They're well coached. Willie Fritz is an awesome head coach at a program like that. They've had 3 straight seasons of at least 6-6 ball, but they're relatively young. Their quarterbacks only played about 8 games. And so I think Oklahoma generates a lot of pressure. I think, and also with everything going on, like, this is just such a difficult game for Tulane is kind of my read on this one.
Yep. And I think either way, if it was home in Tulane, if there wasn't, the things that happened with what's ever going on in New Orleans in the hurricane, I feel like Oklahoma would have won this game handily, no matter where the game is being played. I think they're going to make the points. If you're an Oklahoma fan, if you're a fan of the Big 12, and you're watching these games, I would advise watching 3 things from the Oklahoma side to make sure to give you some confidence into the season, which you already should have because it's goddamn Oklahoma. They're really good. So I would look at that running back. We talk about the running back room this entire week with what happened to Trey Norwood and him going back to LSU. I would look to see what exactly they're using, because if I was Lincoln Riley, after the second half, if you have a big lead, I'm not going to throw Eric Gray in there. I'm not going to throw Kennedy Brooks in there. Right. I'm going to see what exactly I can do. So I would look for what running backs are being used there. I would look to see what their offensive line looks like, because I think if you were to ask a lot of Oklahoma experts, besides running back, that is where they are currently the most skeptical of that team right now, is that offensive line. Do I think Tulane has a lot of great defensive players? No. But I'd like to see just how that is going along. And number 3, I would just look to see how Spencer Rattler looks. I mean, we all have him as the Heisman favorite. He has a lot of fun weapons in there. Marvin Mims. He has Mario Williams. We have Jaden Hazelwood. This is going to be a fun team to watch. And I feel like if you're an Oklahoma fan, your defense is going to be great. This is a time where I'm going to be looking at the offense to be like, okay, are we going to see the Lincoln Riley offense that we always see each year with this group?
Yeah, and I actually made a note here in the Kennedy Brooks, Eric Gray thing. Like, it doesn't matter where you are on the depth chart because they put the dreaded or there, right?
Right.
You're getting carries. You're going to get your carries this year. I don't think either of those guys are worried about getting off the ball, right? Because and now they might be revved up and ready to go and ready to play some games, and they might not be getting as many carries as they would like. But I'm sure they understand the situation now is that, look, fellas, like, you guys are two excellent players that we need in November and late October down the stretch of the league schedule so we can finish things off. So it's a point. You made a great point. I talked about it with John Williams, Locked On Sooners. Like, will there be a pitch count? That's what I'm kind of curious about for those two guys in this game.
Yeah, I think that 100% needs to be a pitch count. If you're Lincoln Riley, you want to walk out this game without any injuries. Like, that's the thing for most games, but especially this game, because that depth is so weak. I would 100% throw a pitch count on this. Like, you're a young, I don't know, you're like young Steven Strasburg coming from the Nats. You're starting in the league, and let's say you're coming off an injury. Just throw 75 pitches. Throw your pitches, get out.
Yeah, and I'll be interested. Maybe they get a couple looks at Jeremiah Hall at tailback, and then they got a couple other guys that they're going to look at. But in a short yardage spot, do you throw Jeremiah Hall in there just to see what he's got? It's funny because you're almost worried in that situation. He's such a great pass catching weapon that you almost might be worried to put him in that kind of spot for fear of injury. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they're going to do. So I'm like, it's one of those weird games where it's like, do they call off the dogs? But no, I think they have to get their feet under them. Oklahoma does. So I think they're going to end up pounding them. Like, I would probably even lay this number at 31.5. I'm glad I have a ticket at 26.5. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
But even at 31.5, I think I'd still lay that.
Yep. I'm taking the points as well of Oklahoma. One thing I'm also looking forward to, if this game is a blowout like we have with the points we are buying, I would love to see Caleb Williams in a football game. I think number one overrated quarterback. I would love to see him in a football game.
It always seems like Oklahoma fans are always more excited about the quarterback who is behind the current quarterback than they 100%. Are the actual quarterback. So, and that's, I think even Dusty Dvorak made that note to us. He's like, I wouldn't be surprised if Caleb Williams got some snaps. And and I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I think everybody wants to see him. I'd say the more intriguing of the 2-11 Central games. And look, I think the Big 12 also part of this is they've got a great balanced schedule. Like, there is a good Big 12 game in every slot. In this slot, I think this game is obviously the more important game in terms of how a team's season might go and really in terms of closeness, Stanford and Kansas State. In the next slot, you've got West Virginia and you got Texas as well against Louisiana. And then later on, you got the Texas Tech game. So well-balanced schedule. This game's super interesting. 11 Central on FS1. Stanford versus Kansas State. Kansas State 3-point favorites in this game. I'm riding with Kansas State. They obviously were on a losing streak, and the quarterback position was really tough for them. But they've got some pretty good pass catchers. I mean, Brooks Knowles and obviously they got the new tight end in there. All those guys are going to benefit from having Skylar Thompson back. And the one thing about Skylar Thompson is he's some crazy NFL prospect. No. But is he solid, dependable? Yes. And I think the fact that they're getting that guy back against Stanford team that's got a lot of questions and some questions, especially in the secondary, I'm kind of riding with Kansas State here -3.
Yep. I think that Skylar Thompson, let's just give him the credit. He's an amazing college quarterback. I think what he brings to that team on the run, in the bet, like him passing too, is great. And you're right. I think they do have a good bit of weapons on there, which kind of makes up with their lack of defense. I think losing Wyatt Hubert last year is that's bad for Kansas State. He was such an integral part of getting to the quarterback. Like, we talked to Matt Wells, and he said, thank God. We were talking to him after the NFL draft. He goes, thank God that Wyatt Hubert is not in this league anymore, because he would have nightmares of him going. So this is a team right now that I think they need to rely on their offense and Skylar Thompson. And once again, love watching Deuce Vaughn. I think he is a top 3 must-watch player in this league. But what I'm looking forward in this game, what exactly does that Kansas State defense kind of look like with this team? I'm not going to say I know so much about Stanford, but this is also at a neutral site. This is at AT&T Stadium. So we had this joke on our show too, but Stanford versus Kansas State, they're similar type of cultures, similar type of programs. This is like the Spider-Man meme game. Just like, oh, you, they're just both looking at each other in the same time. So these are two very evenly teams. Obviously a little biased here, but I think Kansas State's offense is much more than I think what Stanford's offense will bring. I
agree. And a big thing is, and I was, doing my research in this game this morning, like it's I knew there was a quarterback battle between Jack West and McKee, but David Shaw has not made a choice, much like Texas, who we're going to get to in a second. Both guys are going to get reps, both guys are going to get snaps, and for a Kansas State secondary that is actually the more experienced part of the team, that's good news. I think that's good news because the toughest thing, in my opinion, and maybe our colleague Gabe Eicher would argue differently, but I feel like the people on the team who benefit the least from trying to figure out the quarterback is the wide receivers, right? Trying to get on the same page with two different guys, that's hard. And so I favor Kansas State in that regard. I'm taking Kansas State -3. All right, 2:30 on Central Time on ESPN. West Virginia is going to Maryland. This game it's just really a lot of layers for both teams. Maryland fans, I think, are experiencing the most optimism that they've had in years. And West Virginia fans, I would say this is tempered optimism because you like the coach. I don't necessarily love the roster this year for West Virginia. That's kind of where I'm at with this West Virginia team. And so for that reason, Robbie, I like Maryland because they're at home, because I know Talia Tagovailoa, their entire receiving core is back. They are replacing at running back, and they've got some back on defense. But in a game where, you mentioned a Spider-Man meme, not necessarily that identical. Like they're kind of similar, I think, somewhat. But in a game where it is kind of similar, I'm going to go with the home team plus the points in the spot. Although, that being said, you and I are pro Neil Brown guys. I think he's a good coach. I just have questions about quarterback, about wide receiver, and about replacing those defensive weapons they lost.
This is a game I would consider, if you were placing actual money on this, I would flip a coin and then decide. I feel like This is a very evenly matched game, what you're talking about. And you were talking about the weapons for West Virginia. I think on the last podcast I was very down about him. I did my research. I think I need to give more credit to Letty Brown. And I definitely need to give more credit to Bryce Ford Wheaton, who is their top wide receiver. I'm giving them the credit they deserve, and I believe in Jared Dagey. I believe that he is going to be one of the most improved quarterbacks in this league. Accuracy-wise, he is great. What he needs to work on, and we had the stats on this, when he has a clean pocket, when he is standing there and he has a clean pocket, he completed about 75% of his passes. That he is very accurate with that. When he had his pocket collapse, he completed under 45%. So, like, you can see these throughout every quarterback in the league. You're probably going to have this, but that drop off is insane, from about 30% of what exactly is happening pressure-wise. So this is a year for Jarrett Dagey. I want to see that type of ability where he can come out of the pocket, know exactly what to do, not feel that pressure on him. The biggest thing I'm looking forward to this game, though, is what exactly is this West Virginia defense going to look like, because they did lose a lot of players, and I think that has been their number one key this entire year. When you ask about this team, everyone says, well, they lost a lot of players. They lost Tyke Smith to Georgia, arguably their best players. They lost a lot to the NFL draft. Tony Fields 2 years ago. So this is a team right now on defense. That is where I'm looking forward to. I would not bet this game, but if I were to, pick one, I think Maryland's going to come out with this. And I think that's sad because, once again, we believe in Neil Brown. But West Virginia, they have a tough opening slate to their season. And I want them to I want them to succeed at Maryland, Long Island, and then home against Virginia Tech. Middle game's easy, but that's a tough non-conference. And this is, I think, one of the biggest tests in the league this week.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm a Maryland fan, I might take 2-2 with the opening schedule of at Maryland, like you mentioned, Long Island, which for those of you don't, I think it's LIU, whatever it is.
Yes,
that's what it is. Tech, and then at OU. I mean, 2-2 there is not necessarily a bad start. And you're right, like if Jared Dagey takes those steps, and he still could do it, but the first game of the season, I have some concerns. And you look at their last couple games last year, and that's this is where my big concern stems from. Texas 17-13 loss. They beat TCU 24-6, but it's not like you've got some prolific offensive output, right? The story of 24-6 game is your defense. Then they lose 42-6, and then they win the bowl game 24-21, where they bench their quarterback in the game, Jared Dagey, who is their starter now this year. So, and once again, that's a lifetime ago. It's an offseason. It's a whole offseason ago. But where is that offense now? I think you and I are on the same page. It's we're looking at it feels like Maryland in a spot where we don't know maybe much about both these teams. Mm-hmm. And 3 is always the number for a home team in Vegas, right? You get the 3-point edge. Maryland's the way to go. Next game here. This is there's no line on this on Bet Online. So the big question in a game like this, Robbie, is what are you looking for? 3:30 Central and ESPN Plus, Northern Iowa against Iowa State. I know Northern Iowa is usually a very good FCS program, but what are you looking from Iowa State? Iowa State should win handily.
So if you're an Iowa State fan, you were probably looking back in 2019. They went to overtime, first game of the year. These teams both went to overtime. Iowa State won 29-26. But this is a game every year we see Matt Campbell struggle out of the gates. If you're an Iowa State fan, you cannot be you have to be a little nervous. I think you're going to win the game. I want everyone to know, Iowa State, people of Ames, you're going to win this game. But what I want Iowa State to do, I want them to win 45-0. I want them to win 55-0. I want to win 1,000-0. I'm tired of last year, Iowa State, they are going to have one of their best seasons of all time and they lose the opener in Louisiana. Louisiana is a much better team than this. But the year before that, they're going to overtime with Northern Iowa. They're a much better team than this. Matt Campbell, start the season off hot. How about that? Not worry about that. How about let's just beat them up before you go play Iowa? If I'm an Iowa State fan, please don't give me any type of trepidation about this season. Just come out hot. That's all I want. That's all I want, and don't get injured.
We're going to talk about Iowa and the other Iowa, proper in a little bit because they got a big week 1 game against Indiana. But that's what I'm with you 100%. Let's get healthy. Let's get right because this is the first 2 weeks of this Iowa State season are going to give Iowa State fans so much anxiety. I think you perfectly mentioned that 2019 overtime game. And then the fact they've got Iowa after that, a team that they have not beaten in the Matt Campbell era. I've talked so much in the offseason, we all have, about this Iowa State team. And it feels like to me, with the weight of expectation, I know Oklahoma's got more than Iowa State does. But Oklahoma, to me, is more prepared to handle those expectations. Iowa State just is – they haven't been there before. Last year, I know it was a weird season, but they were 9 wins, right? They beat Oregon in a New Year's Six Bowl. That's the pinnacle. And now it's oh, my God, we're going to turn around. We're number 7 in the country. And, we do it again. And that, to me, is so it's this is a settle-in game. They're looking forward – this is a settle-in game. Get yourselves right. And all eyes for me, Robbie, are on Brock Purdy because I don't love his arm strength. They had the ball, the chance to win the Big 12 championship game, and he made the mistake. Don't get twisted. He was the one who made the mistake. But there were also times last year, the second half of that Baylor game, that version of Brock Purdy was good enough to beat anybody in the country, anybody in the country. And it's so crazy that this is such a great, resilient veteran team, but everything to me, their ceiling, it falls on the shoulders of their quarterback.
Yep, I agree with that. This is the team in the Big 12. I have the 0. I have the least amount of question marks about this team. I know what I'm getting with Iowa State because I've seen it before. And you're right. They have not been there before, but thankfully the last couple of years, they've kind of, inched closer and closer and going to the Big 12 championship game. I think that's going to be a big learning lesson for Brock Purdy. We talked to him in the offseason about it, and he was like, yep, I watched it. I hated what I was doing, and I want to learn from that because it hurt a lot watching that. Iowa State is a team, this offseason didn't have a spring game. They've been resting. What they said, the reason they didn't have a spring game or they didn't want to hit as much and just focus on their body is so they can be fresh and come into the season, by the end of November or early December, their bodies are as fresh because they haven't had the contact of it. It's a bold move by Matt Campbell. I kind of love it.
I do too.
That move's not going to pay off if you come out slow. It's just that's just the reality of it. If you haven't been hitting and your body isn't, used to that or whatever, they're going to come out slow. So this is a game right now I'm looking forward to. Does that work? Does no spring game work? Not having that type of reps work. And that's why I see early. If you're an Iowa State fan, you've seen this before, don't come out slow. Don't come out slow.
Might just don't even watch the first 2 games. Just hide yourself.
Just grab some whiskey, you'll be fine.
Exactly. All right, we're gonna we went through 5 games. We're gonna take a break here. We'll go to part 2, which will be up as a separate podcast here. So everybody look for the channel. We'll release them together, but it's going to be 2 episodes. So everybody look for episode 2.